Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bald Avenger Show. And this one is going to be massively unique. But before we get started, I just want to say and welcome to the show a brand new sponsor, and it's Leah Steel Body. And this is a woman that created a unique way to restore skin and be vibrant and have young skin for a really, really long time. And she put together a product for the watchers and the listeners of the Bald Avenger Show called the Bald Avenger Beauty Cult Combo. Look for that at the end of this episode. There'll be a connection up and you can go check out her products. It's stuff that I use on my face that makes me looking so young. It doesn't work on my damn beard though at all. So that is our new sponsor, and I would love, I'm really excited about today's show. I say that at the beginning of most shows because I am usually fairly excitable, but this one is unique to me. I feel sort of a soul connection to my sister here, and we had a great pre-interview conversation that just blew my mind. It spun me off. I had to cancel a couple of meetings because of our conversation. It went deep. It was awesome for me and made me think about things in a new way. But we're going to be talking about a lot of things today that are going to seem dark to a lot of people. But I just want to just give some advice at the beginning. Stick through this, because the woman that I'm about to introduce you to is a warrior, a survivor, somebody that I admire. I get goosebumps when I think about all of the things that she's been through, and she's here, and she's got my twisted sense of fucking humor, and and that helps us get along quite well. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Miss Cleo DeLoner. Welcome to the Bald Avenger Show.
Thank you. And first rule is do not. I say again, do not call me Miss Cleo, because I am not a fat black psychic. I am a fat white psychopath. Okay?
Nice distinction. Nice distinction.
Those of you who don't know Miss Cleo, she was on late night TV back in the 80s. She was like some psychic from the Virgin Islands, or she was like, call Miss Cleo, I give you your future. And people call me Miss Cleo all the time, especially if they're from the South, right?
Yes.
And so I'm like, I'm not a fat black psychic. I'm a fat white psychopath. And then you just look at me like.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about Miss Cleo for so long. That was a long time ago. That's where, you know, the white beard it comes in. I can remember that.
Like a year and a half ago, she died of cancer. Yes, she didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that one coming. Yeah, she should have known in the future, right?
Well, all of you who spent money on the 80s going to Cleo, she was a hoax because she didn't even see her own cancer coming.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm interested about our conversation. You know, there's this is a big deal, and it's been a part of your life for a long time. I've been affected and impacted by it with my friends in the past, some of my family members, and the way that you look at this and your specific pathway is so unique that I think it's going to help a lot of people. Number one, anybody that's contemplating suicide, especially because of your experience in the military. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself on that area, but your experience there, 22 vets a day, 22 warriors a day that are committing suicide and looking for tools. And the thing that I love about our conversation, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. There's more things and more tools, because you're not only a survivor, you're a thriver. You're somebody that has come back. You've gotten off of meds, and I'll let you tell your story because you tell it much better than I do. But I just want to say at the beginning, the reason why you want to listen to this entire show is whether you're thinking about or have thought about committing suicide or are touched by it in your life, you're going to learn some things. You're going to learn some tools. You're going to have some places to get pointed to be able to improve the situation and to have people think about it in a different way, i.e. saving lives. And that's what this show is about. So stick with us. And Cleo, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just roll, like you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Cleo DeLoner. I live in Arizona. And as Jason has already stated, this is going to be some substance about suicide. I've attempted 3 times in my life. And incidentally, a good friend of yours, Johnny Duff, as I call him, John Duffy, is his name, is who introduced us. And I'm grateful that he's connected us. And him and I were having a conversation the other night after you and I spoke. I called him to say, hey, I connected with your buddy Jason, and this is what happened. And I was explaining to him that suicide attempt survivors, not just the stigma of having done that, because automatically you're labeled as crazy or insane or, selfish. It goes beyond that. And of course, at the time that I had attempted, didn't know this. One of the stories I was telling him was that I decided to go down to the pool hall and shoot pool. I love to shoot pool. And it was with my pool guy, the guy that cleans my swimming pool. So I was playing billiards with the pool guy. Well, I left my cell phone at home intentionally. And I go down to the pool hall. I was a smoker back then. It's almost been 2 years since I quit smoking. And, I was nursing a beer for like 3 hours, shooting pool, kicking his tail. And my publisher called me. I'm an author, and we'll talk about the book later. My publisher had called me, and Cleo always answers the phone, right? But Cleo didn't answer the phone, so he leaves a message. Hey, give me a call. I didn't call him back. So he figures, oh, well, maybe she's out. I'll call her cell phone. So he calls my cell phone. No answer. Then he texts me, Cleo, where are you? Then he just blows up my landline and my cell phone. Then he calls another buddy of mine who lives in Tennessee, where they both live, and he starts blowing up my phone. Then they get a hold of Boone Cutler, and Boone blows up my Facebook page. Cleo, remember the Spartan Pledge? And people are like, Cleo, where are you? Call somebody. Meanwhile, I'm shooting pool, smoking cigarettes, right? And everybody's trying to get a hold of me. Now, this is because of my past. So I'm done shooting pool. I'm driving home, got a cigarette in my mouth, windows down, music's blaring. About 2 weeks prior, somebody had moved in across the street, a new neighbor. As I'm driving down the street, I see a cop car in front of the neighbor's house, right? I'm like, oh, great. They've already got the cops at this house. What the hell is going on? Oh, no. I pull into my driveway, and there's 2 police officers, and they're trying to pry my metal roller shields off my window, right? And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I pull up, kill the music, roll up the window, kill my cigarette. I get out, and I'm like, can I help you? And they're like, are you Cleo? I am. And they're like, do you have any weapons on you? I'm like, I do, as a matter of fact. Well, what do you have? It was the female officer. I said, I have a knife in the small of my back. And she goes, well, please don't stab us in the throat with it. I'm like, what are you doing here? She goes, do you have any ID? And I said, yeah, I'm going to reach for my wallet, right? So I gave her my license, and I said, what's going on? She goes, oh, your friends in Tennessee are really worried about you. They couldn't get a hold of you. So we're doing a welfare check. And they've even called the psych ward in Phoenix, right, to see if you were a patient in the psych ward. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm shooting pool. I'm like, look, I was shooting pool with this chalk all over my hands. And like, oh, no, you're not in trouble or nothing. I'm like, why were you trying to pry my window open? Well, we were trying to get into your house. We went in your backyard, by the way. I'm like, whoa. So I should have prefaced all of that with the reason this happened, not just because I've had 3 suicide attempts, because the most brutal suicide attempt that I had, that I perpetrated upon myself, was in 2002, 24 June of 2002. I was living in Michigan, and I was married, and I was having a real bad time, and I drove to a river, and I sat on the tailgate, and I put a rifle to my face, and I pulled the trigger. I fired a bullet into my face, and I never lost consciousness. I actually walked around and drove. That's a whole nother story. But this is what suicide attempts bring. If you are lucky enough, assuming you feel lucky, these are the type of things that you're going to experience. When I call up a friend of mine you know, my English professor, who's my writing mentor, you know, he's known me since 1988 when I was 18 in college. I call him up, you know, hey, how you doing? He's like, is everything okay? I'm like, why wouldn't it be okay? You know? And I was like, dude, so after like the third or fourth time, I was like, why do you always ask me that? He's like, I'm just worried. I'm like, stop worrying. You know, so it's more than just the stigma that other people give. It's the stigma that your loved ones give because they're in a perpetual state of worry, you know. If they can't get a hold of me, oh, well, she must be dead, you know. So that's part of it. I was just having this conversation with Duffy the other day because we were talking about all the stuff we talked about, Jason. But so let's rewind a little bit. I came from a very abusive childhood. I was the white kid of the family. My mother was full-blood Hispanic, had married a Native American man, and all my siblings looked very Native American. So I was the white kid, but I grew up in a very traditional Hispanic home. And I was a constant reminder of her trauma. I am the product of a rape, apparently by a white man. So I was this constant reminder of her trauma. And being a human being, she couldn't just lock me in a closet, although she did a few times. But so she just took it out on me. So it was just a constant abuse, neglect, hatred, just really vile things said that no child should ever have to hear, coming from the person who's teaching them about love or should teach them about love. And so, you know, after slapping me or punching me or hitting me or pulling my hair or saying horrible things, oftentimes it's followed up with, I love you. So now for a long time, I associated love with violence. You know, I love you, or I love you. And then you're like, oh, you know, is that what's going to come next? And so it kind of rewires your brain that isn't even really wired properly at the time anyway, because you're a child and your brain hasn't technically fully developed. And so it was just, I've been told that even back as young as age 12, I was suicidal. And that's, you know, that's really, that's terrible that a child should have that kind of intense feelings of wanting to end their lives. Their life should not be so bad that they're thinking at age 12 how to kill themselves, right? Or even
you and I have that in common. I mean, you know, when we were having that conversation, I did the same thing. I contemplated it. I had the knife. I had it all, and it was all around, you know, the person, like you said, it was that person that was supposed to love me, that person that was supposed to protect me. And I was so afraid that I'd broken his favorite or it wasn't even me, it was my little brother. And I was going to take the rap from my little brother. And I was so afraid of what was going to happen over a fucking glass, you know, at that same age, thinking it would be better to go ahead and take my life than to go ahead and face what I'm about to face whenever he finds out that his glass is broken. Yeah. Right.
And you know, the thing about an abused child, a couple things is they learn very quickly how to become manipulative, right? Because we're trying to manipulate the situation to get out of the next beating. Now, a lot of people know the cycle of women that deal with domestic violence, right? They get the crap knocked out of them. Then there's the honeymoon phase where they get the roses and the candies and I love you, I'll never do it again. And then there's the build-up stage. And that person's walking on eggshells, anticipating the next beating. Boom, there it is. And then it's the honeymoon phase again. And it just goes and goes and goes. It's very much similar for childhood abuse, you know. And so we learn at a very young age how to become manipulative.
It's funny you say that because the last interview I did, it was with, you know, it was a dating coach or, you know, with Tracy Porterfield, just a beautiful light of a human being. And I was diving into my relationships. And one of the things that I told her that I'd never said publicly before was that I learned to lie, right? You used the word manipulate, which is spot on and perfect. I learned to lie because I knew if I said the right words to him, how to avoid a beating, right? And so I learned how to lie, which taught me that instead of being blunt and straightforward like you are and I am now, that's a learned thing. You know, I had to get over the fact that, you know, it was telling people what they wanted to hear. It wasn't a lie for a lie's sake. Like even, you know, when my ex-wife would ask me, hey, where are you? I'm like, I'm on my way, when I hadn't left the house yet. Stupid shit. Right. Because I thought that's what she wanted to hear. So keep going. Well, this is fascinating.
The interesting about, you know, basically being forced to become manipulative. And you don't even know what that means. You're just trying to avoid getting the shit kicked out of you, right?
Yep.
So later on, as I was growing emotionally, through all the years of therapy, I realized how manipulative I could be, how sometimes I was purposely, but 99% of the time it wasn't intentional. So I had to keep that on the forefront of my brain. All right, when I was interacting, engaging in dialogue with somebody, don't manipulate, don't manipulate, don't manipulate, right? Don't be passive aggressive. And so that had to be, I had to retrain myself to not be manipulative, because nobody's trying to beat me up now. She doesn't have that power over me anymore. She hadn't had that power over me since I left at 18 to go to college. But I had spent most of my life being manipulative because I didn't know any better. And so it's unfortunate. You know, when we talked the other day, Jason, you know, a couple of the things I told you that when I do my speaking engagements is I talk about the fact that all of us have a story, and all of our stories are identical and they're totally different at the same time. You and I have an identical story in the sense that we've both experienced love and sorrow and hatred and pain and all of these things, and they're completely different in the sense that we've experienced them in different ways, right?
Sure.
And so I never try to minimize anybody's story, okay? Now, people find my story, my life, very tragic, but to me, I don't know any different, right? So it's not tragic to me. I lived through it. I'm here. One of my psychiatrists way back when, about 6-7 years ago, put a number on it, dude. And this terrified me. It was startling. He said, you know, Cleo, 87% of your life has been nothing but violence and trauma. I'm like, 87? And at the time I was like 41 years old. I'm 48 now. And I was thinking, okay. So in my brain housing group, I'm like, okay, you think about the college football star, girlfriend is the cheerleading squad, you know, mother, father, spot the dog, white picket fence, everything's perfect. They break up, right? That's like 0.0007% of his life is traumatic, right? But then I think about my warrior brothers who are in special forces. I have some buddies who are special forces who've deployed 8 times to the sandbox, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, right? Who have had similar childhoods to me. Now they're in the sandbox for the 8th time, you know, being hunted while they're hunting the bad guy. And they've got the same combat PTSD that I have, multiplied by 1,000,000 because it's their 8th trip. What the heck is their percentage? They've had the same childhood. They've deployed 8 times. You know, they've lost buddies. They've done all the stuff that combat, you know, comes with. It's got to be 100%.
Yeah.
So it's such a startling number to think, and obviously nobody can really put a number on the percentage of your life that's been that way, but
it's a perspective that I think that when people hear that, they might go, wow, like maybe my life isn't so bad, or I'm not alone. I mean, those are the 2 options, right? My life isn't as bad as I think it is. And if it is, I'm not alone. And there's other people that have figured out not just to survive. This world isn't, in my opinion, and I think this is what connects us. It's not about just surviving. It's about thriving. It's about being able to take that shit that happened to us and say, fuck you to them, and be able to be exactly the opposite. You know, I would tell people all the time that my adopted father tried to beat the life and the spirit out of me. And all he did was make me one badass servant-oriented motherfucker. That's all he did.
Well, people that are generally go through that kind of trauma and violence and come out the other end, their mission is to prevent others from going through it, because they know how crappy that feels. And, you know, sitting on that tailgate that day, you know, I told you when we did the pre-interview, you asked me a specific question, you know, what went through your mind just before you pulled the trigger? And I told you the last bit of energy I had was used to pull that trigger. I did not want to have one more thought, one more feeling. I didn't want to take one more breath. I just wanted it to stop. And having pulled that trigger, like I said, imagine my surprise when I realized I was alive, having not lost consciousness. And, some people take a punch to the face and they're out for the 10 count, right?
Yeah.
This was a 22 hollow point, to my face. I mean, the barrel was flush to the point where I had a muzzle burn, right?
Wow.
Because it burns the flesh, obviously. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it bled for like 2 weeks, dude. 2 weeks. I'm walking around the psych ward, with Kleenex, blood dripping. But realizing that I was alive, and then going into survival mode and trying to get help because I knew I needed to get back into town. It's I don't want anybody to have that intensive feelings. I don't want them to be enveloped by that intensity of darkness to the point where they're sitting on any tailgate or, whatever, standing on a building, whatever it is that the method that they choose. Now this was a result of what I call the PTSD pancake. Someday I'm going to write a piece called PTSD pancake. You can get the short stack and the high stack, right? So yes. Think about all these layers of pancakes as bits and pieces of trauma through your life, right? And the syrup and the butter can represent some of the love and the compassion from friends that you meet along the way. But it's not the substance of the meal, right? The pancake is the substance of the meal, all that trauma, right? And so I forgot where I was going with this, but the shooting was a result of the PTSD pancakes, all these layers and layers and layers. Mm-hmm. And we all have a breaking point. My threshold was long gone. I just couldn't do it anymore. And this was after years, 18 years of abuse and neglect. Struggling through college because of the mental health issues, joining the military. I joined the United States Army. I was a military police. I did most of my time at Fort Bliss, Texas. After my AIT in Fort McClellan, Alabama. Got stationed at Fort Bliss. I was there the entire time except for 2 deployments. I deployed to Hurricane Andrew in '92. And I think we were only there in Florida for like a month, maybe a little bit over. But then in January '93, our unit deployed to Somalia. And we were one of the first units there in Somalia in January. And the first American troops that landed there were December 8th when the Marines pulled up on the beaches of the Indian Ocean, and we got there a little over a month later. So it was, I'm 22 years old, bro. I'm 22 years old, right? I'm naive. I'm full of compassion and wonder. And I'm curious. I'm a curious individual. I remember stepping off the plane and just being suffocated by that heat. I'm just like, took your breath, 130 degrees, right?
Right.
I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And then they started issuing us live ammo. And I thought, oh man, this is for real. I could die. I might have to kill somebody. This isn't training anymore. This is the real stuff. Mm. We're in another country with people that want to kill us, And within 12 hours, for specific reasons, within 12 hours of being in that country, all my compassion was gone. And over the years of healing from my time there, I've got little bits and pieces of my compassion back, but not all of it, unfortunately.
Wow. It's such a short amount of time to lose. Like, again, I think that one of the things that I get from you now, I think you have gained a lot more of it back than maybe you give yourself credit for, because one of the things that in our conversation that I got was you have a deep regard for how your words, you use the phrase wordsmith with me. And I view myself also as a fellow wordsmith, and you put a lot of responsibility on yourself of how your words are going to impact others. And I think you've put yourself, I mean, you've even pulled yourself off the circuit for a bit, you know, because of worrying about that impact. So I think you've got a lot of that compassion, but a lot of this pain, like you said, when you come out the other side of it, I think the beautiful thing about surviving that I would say to survivors, as I've had multiple conversations, multiple interactions now with people that have contemplated, attempted, have family members that they've lost, is that on the other side of this, you've developed a muscle that most people don't have, right? For empathy, for understanding, for, you know, things that tweak people. You know, maybe their burger came out 5 minutes too late, or their steak came out under, you know, a little bit underdone, or whatever it is. It develops in us this ability. There's a line in a movie that says the future belongs to the broken. And that's because the broken have that thing called empathy. And it's because we have that feeling, that association of caring about someone else sometimes more than we care about ourselves. Right. And that's what's going to heal things, right? The broken, where we think we've broken, we've made mistakes. You tried to commit suicide. I did all the stuff that I've talked about on previous shows where we just go, we're such fuck ups. Who's going to listen to us, and why would they listen to us? And that's why Misfit Nation, it's full of people that have fucked up in life and thought that was where, and even if it's not ourselves, it's somebody else that goes, you know what, you fucked up. You need to stay right where you're at. Do not advance. Do not go. You just stay there and wait till they throw dirt on top of you. Right. And that's what the show fucking exists for, is to tell people like you and me and that stuff that we went through was to tell us not to do it anymore, and to start learning new skill sets so that we could go out and inform and educate other people and bring that love and bring that empathy to bear, because it's the most powerful weapon I think that exists on planet Earth, is loving someone else enough to get out of our own shit and to care more about our message getting through and giving them tools to be able to avoid that process. And I love you for that. I love you. I love your spirit. I love your heart. So, I have so much admiration for you.
Well, I'll tell you that, that one of the other things I told you is that I know that God gives us the life that he gives us because that's what we can handle.
Yes.
I wasn't given the life of a 12-year-old on the streets of Chicago selling my body for my next meal.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't handle that. Now, as violent and traumatic and tragic as people find my life, I am grateful for every microsecond of the 48 plus years that I've lived, because it's made me who I am. Mm-hmm. And those are all tools that I've developed to go out and help others. So if somebody's suicidal and have been suicidal, say for 2 months, and, they're contemplating, this is it, goodbye, cruel world. If something that I say to them or help them with can get them through that in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months versus 40 some years that I went through, and then they can go on and give it to the next person and help the next person, the next person. It's like little tiny fragments of ourself that we give away to make the big picture of all of us, right? We're all just tiny fragments of this giant puzzle. And the cool thing about misfits, as your people call themselves, I would much rather have a conversation with you 24/7, 5 days a week, twice on Sunday, than some dude that's got his briefcase and his cell phone. He's a broker, he's going to Wall Street. He has no substance in his life. He's got, no life experience. He doesn't read. All he does is watch the stock market. He's got the perfect little life. He's super rich. He eats fucking sushi every night for dinner. That's boring, dude. I want to talk to people with substance, because every conversation that I have, I don't care if it's 30 seconds or 3 hours, 2 things. I want to learn something, and I want my soul to be touched.
Ooh.
Somewhere in that conversation, I want what that other person says to touch my soul. Something, even if it's one phrase, one word, one sentence, even a look that they have. And if we all thrive to being curious, more curious, wanting to learn from whoever we're conversing with, if we're engaging in dialogue with the homeless guy, on the street, on the sidewalk in front of Circle K versus, the minister that's praying for us, I want to learn something.
Yeah.
I want substance because I'm a curious person, because I'm an intense person, because I have little use for innocuous conversations.
Vapid. This is my vapid conversations make me want to puke.
Exactly. It's like, why? What's the point? Why are we wasting time talking about this?
Well, it's an important subject, Cleo, because today you see a lot of people. I mean, I can't remember who said it. I would love to give credit for it. I didn't come up with it, but when it comes to social media, there's a lot of people that and I heard it said, again, it wasn't my origination, but I heard it said that people's realities are interacting with other people's facades. Yeah. Right. And so that creates this whole other. Social media has created, look, is it worse or better than it was 50? I don't give a fuck. I mean, the bottom line is it is what it is. Social media is not going anywhere. So you better learn how to deal with the shit, be a grown up and figure your shit out. Like, if you're depressed because somebody else is, posting a picture up there, next to a helicopter, and you went to high school with them, and you have a world or a life that you are living now that is not what you expected it to be, just understand that picture that you're seeing, even to your example, that person that is the broker eating sushi every night, we're interacting with their facade. Right. And I think what you're saying, and why I created this show, and the conversations and the interaction that you and I had specifically, it's that our reality, your reality and my reality, are interacting together. Right. And in that moment, something real happens. Like I said, if you and I would have never spoken again because you warned me that we might not,
Well, no, I warned you that I might not be on your podcast.
Right.
Not that I couldn't speak to you again.
Got it. Yeah. So in that interaction, there was magic that happened. And what that means is it impacted my thinking, which then ultimately will impact my behavior in some way. And that's your pay it forward, that ripple in the pond, that piece of the puzzle that may be missing for me to be able to go out and impact in some other way at a deeper level than I could have had I not met you. Right. And vice versa with our conversation with you. And so this day and age, I think what Cleo just said is so important for us to understand, that your reality needs to interact with other people's reality, and you need to be curious, be open to the fact that even in disagreement, your belief can be strengthened. And if it's wrong, it should be changed. Right. Yeah. Instead of holding on doggedly to a belief just because your parents believed it, or because, it's been driven into us by society. Life is changing all the time. It's an evolution. Who I am today, who you are today, is not anywhere near the same. Not any part of your body, your cells, your heart. It's all been regenerated since you were 22 years old. You're literally not the same person. Yeah. Right. And so I think that's a really important part for people to understand, is that make sure that your reality is interacting with somebody else's reality. And even if your reality is interacting with them and something about them upsets you, figure out what's going on inside of you instead of blaming that on the other person and thinking they need to change. The only people that can change, per our conversation, right, is the person in the mirror.
Right. I'm going to share something with you, and I don't know that I've ever shared this publicly. Somebody said something to me when I was fairly young, I'm guessing early teens, and it always stuck with me. And surprisingly enough, I haven't got it tattooed on my body yet. But this is so incredibly profound and so devastatingly sad and true. And because of the parallel lives that you and I have lived, just get ready. This might, this is what they said to me. And I'm going to say it slow, and I'm going to say it a couple times so you can process this. You make everything that is good hurt to prove to yourself that it is real, because the only reality you've ever known is pain. So if it doesn't hurt, you don't believe that it is real.
Wow.
You make everything good hurt to prove to yourself that it is real, because the only reality you've ever known is pain. So if it does not hurt, you do not believe that it is real. And having lived the majority of my life that way, I became what people call self-sabotage. We self-sabotage. It's like, I'm happy, things are going great, for 2 weeks, and then I realize, oh my God, I'm happy. I don't deserve this. And we sabotage, right? We self-sabotage. And this is common with children who are abused and neglected, right? Yeah. They grow up to sabotage their relationships, their finances, their jobs, everything about their life. On a subconscious level, they're sabotaging it because they don't think they deserve it. And it can't be good because there's no pain in this. And if there's no pain, then it can't even be real. Is that crazy or what, bro? Because you put your head down and I can't see your eyes anymore. And
yeah, no, I'm putting my head down because I'm writing it down.
I figured as much.
Yeah, it's something that I want to capture. And
I'll send it to you in a text or an email.
Yeah, that would be great if you just text it over to me, because I want to put that on, on one of the lead-ins. But it can't be good because it doesn't hurt. And it's interesting.
No, it can't be real.
Can't be real, right?
Yeah. You make everything good hurt to prove to yourself that it is real, because the only reality you've ever known is pain. So if it doesn't hurt, you don't believe that it is real.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
It is, right?
It's so powerful. So editing people, break for just 1 second. And I'll put on the time frame here. That's so fucking powerful. I just a break. Just cut here, and then I'll tell you when to pick back up. So say that to me word for word again.
You make everything that is good hurt to prove to yourself that it is real, because the only reality you have ever known is pain. So if it does not hurt, you do not believe that it is real.
Okay, one more time.
Okay. You make everything that is good hurt to prove to yourself that it is real, because the only reality you've ever known is pain. So if it does not hurt, you do not believe that it is real.
Yeah, you're gonna have to text that to me, but I just wanted to get that initial. That's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go flip the lights because they'll kick off.
Is that also your reality?
What's that?
Is that also your reality?
I'm gonna address that because fuck yes. So hang on, I'll be right back.
Don't know where he's going or if this is still recording, but
It's still recording. I'm in one of those. My building is a LEEDs building. It's a LEED certified. So the light may still go off. If it does go completely off, that's just a cue to stop, and I'll have to go flip it back on. So I just flipped it. So hopefully it goes good. So, okay, editing crew, we're going to pick back up. We may in a few minutes actually have to go back off again, but editing crew, we are going back live right now. Cleo, what you just said, it's so deep and impactful. I'm gonna print it out for everybody. I'll put it up on your picture when we go live with this interview. But it made me stop and think. I put my head down. I started writing because there was a time when and everybody can think back in their own life and they can see where something was going too good and you made a realization about it. And even if it's unconscious or conscious, when we start to sabotage so that we can go back and start having challenges or pain in our life, I can distinctly remember my life, your life, the life of a lot of the listeners, it has felt like a fucking battle. Like, from the first day, I can't remember, like even some of the stuff that you brought back to my mind about my childhood, right? I hadn't thought about that broken glass because I don't remember huge swaths of my childhood because of the trauma, right? And so we go back and we think about these things and we think to ourselves, no matter how old we are, you're 48, I'm 47. And we look back at our life and we think about that percentage that you addressed earlier about how much of our life has been in pain. And so when something's going good, we have to make it hurt to make it feel real, to your point. And I remember it was not too long ago. It was about 7 years ago. And I had gotten past the stress of money and I was sitting on a beautiful porch in Hawaii overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting. And I started, like, you would understand this. I'm not afraid of anything. I've been through fucking hell and back. And I, like, my body jerked because I was like, there's nothing fucking wrong right now. You know what I mean?
How could this be?
And it was foreign as fuck to me. Mm-hmm. That feeling of going, and I started to go, wait a minute, what is this feeling? And I dove into it. I figured it out. And like you've done, we all come up with our own solutions to figure this stuff out. But I wanted to acknowledge how powerful what you just said is, and how I literally, it was one of those, those moments when my entire being shook and I went, there's nothing wrong right now, and that's
you stepped out of your comfort zone. The pain, the misery, the violence, the trauma happens so frequently that becomes our comfort zone, because that's what it is 24/7, almost constantly. And when something good is happening, that's out of our comfort zone. So it's completely backwards in quote unquote normal people's lives, right?
Yes.
Their comfort zone is sitting watching that sunset at the ocean or the sunrise, whatever it was you said. I don't remember, probably not significant, but that's normal people's comfort zone.
Which is why they can't understand sometimes, right? When you're like, I don't understand why you're depressed. I don't understand why you're upset. I don't understand why. Like, this is why. Right. Because if you don't experience, and it doesn't make us better than, or it just makes us a different configuration. Everybody's got challenges. I know that. And to your, again, your earlier point was great, which is you can't minimize anybody's pain, because their pain is their pain, no matter how deep it is. But when you're dealing with somebody who's suicidal and you don't have that configuration, so to speak, this is why you don't understand them.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read, I think the I am PTSD. Now, to the listeners, I shared this piece with Jason the other day to just kind of give him an idea of my writing style.
And she just so everybody understands what's about to happen. She's a beautiful poet. Her words are very powerful. So you're going to enjoy this. And I think you have 2, 3, maybe even 4 pieces that you're just going to read verbatim. And I'm looking forward to everybody hearing it.
Yeah. So if I'm not looking directly at the cameras, because I'm reading off the word processor, but my intention is to write what I call an I am series. I am PTSD, I am suicide have both been written. I'm going to write I am combat, I am courage, I am hope, I am loneliness, I am depression. Mm-hmm. So you'll obviously understand it. So I am PTSD. I have many aliases: soldier's heart, battle fatigue, shell shock, broken. I am like no enemy you have ever fought. I control you. I own you. I insert horrific memories in your head at my beck and call. I watch you from a distance as you stare at nothing. I startle you back to reality. I freeze the most graphic images in your mind, forcing you to witness the horror over and over again. I fuel your rage. I fuel your hatred. I take you close in my arms, away from everyone who cares about you, because I am jealous. When I have you isolated, all to myself, my relentless assault intensifies. My voice is all that you will hear. I will convince you that you are worthless, guilty, a burden, unloved, and unlovable. I will bring you to your knees. You will try to crawl your way out of the maze of confusion until you collapse face down. All the while, I scream at you to end it. I will drive you to a depth of darkness, and no amount of light will penetrate. I will envelop you in total and utter unimaginable despair. The emptiness you feel carries 1,000 echoes of the suffering that I inflict. You will make futile attempts to silence me with your pathetic pills, your bottles of booze. You will believe that I have retreated, but I am still with you, waiting, watching patiently. Your staggering drunkenness brings you to a state of unconsciousness. You are right where I want you. I now bring you the images in full color. I add the sounds of screams. Hovering over you, I watch as you twitch, toss, turn, punch the air, cling to your blankets and scream no. I drench you in a cold sweat, forcing you to awaken sitting straight up as you gasp for air. You don't like to talk about me to your loved ones. Why would you want to? How would you describe me? Am I just a voice in your head? Am I the monster who has taken up residence in your mind? Better to just stay quiet. Keep this affair between us. I've convinced you that they don't care, that I'm the only one who cares. I'll never leave you alone. This road that we stumble down together is a road I walk with many. I sabotage every relationship they have. Their loved ones retreat, leaving them lonely. They fought me. They fought hard. In the end, they all succumbed to me. Odds are you will too. You have embraced me without even knowing it. I have you in the corner of darkness, providing you with an instrument of death. I have encouraged you, guided you, defeated you. Now I can sit back and watch your sad finale. I am PTSD. Now I want to say for, most people associate PTSD with combat or war. And there's probably 1 million of your listeners out there that their PTSD is from different things. People can get PTSD obviously from, victims of rape, domestic violence, botched surgeries, natural disasters, car accidents. There's an array of ways to get PTSD. Now, obviously mine is combat PTSD in addition to the childhood abuse PTSD. So normally when I talk about this stuff, it's in reference to my PTSD from combat. So I'm not at all minimizing those who have PTSD from something other than combat, whether you're a veteran or not. There's many veterans who have PTSD from MST, which is military sexual trauma, being sexually assaulted in the military. Some of it on top of combat PTSD. So I probably should have prefaced before I read that piece with that. That piece is not specifically about combat.
No, I get it. I get it. Because I mean, I when I started, because eventually, no matter where you're at, your shit catches up to you, and this is one of those things. You think you're going crazy. There's all kinds of stuff that happens when you've gone through traumatic scenarios, abuse, everything that you mentioned. And you think, well, I'm just going to bury it, right? I'm going to stuff it down. The shit catches up to you, right? And it's best to get it out. This is another great lesson from the show. It's best to get it out. Talk to somebody, find somebody, a professional. We'll put some phone numbers up here, at the end of the episode. But I remember distinctly, going, going through this, and I'd buried it because, like you, I left my house, on Thanksgiving Day when I was 15. That's when I got kicked out. and I've been, having to feed myself and put a roof over my head ever since. And you bury that. And then there's a break in it where you've got enough money and you're not in massive survival. And that's when the shit shows up. Yeah. And I remember distinctly one day going, man, I'm having a hard time swallowing. And I finally made an appointment with a ear, nose, and throat guy. And he asked me a question. He said, how much pressure or stress are you under? I was like, what the fuck? I mean, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? What does that
have a scale to measure that?
Exactly. And so he said, well, I think you should go talk to a psychiatrist. I literally got almost angry enough to punch the guy, because I'm like, are you calling me crazy? Right. It was just, for me, it was like, fuck you, and it got worse. It got worse. Like I had tricked my mind into the fact the only thing that I could swallow was like bologna that was smothered in mayonnaise and soup that didn't have any chunks in it. And I instantly lost like 35 pounds. And finally they figured out, okay, you got PSTD and all these other things where they're trying to, and they diagnosed me bipolar. I wasn't, all of these things that you've probably been through the same thing, right?
I got diagnosed as bipolar. I wasn't.
Right. And the issue is they give you a pill, right? And they give you a pill, and all it did was suck can't speak for all other people, because, I'm sure that it helps some people, but for me, it just made me a walking zombie. And I, we'll talk later on about how I got myself out of that, but it ended up, I one drug to the next drug to the next drug. And, oh, you must not have, you must not be bipolar. You must be this, you must be this, and they just worked their way through it. And the issue is that there was fucking trauma. They had to be dealt with, and there's different ways of doing that. And I'm by no means am I giving advice. I'm not a doctor to people, but what I will say is that the mental side of things manifest themselves in physical fashion. Yeah. And I thought I had a brain tumor. I thought I was having heart attacks, panic attacks, all of the stuff that goes along with it. And so I love that piece you just did. And I think that's a prelude to another piece that you've written.
Yeah. I want to talk which actually is going to lead into that next piece. Mm-hmm. When I shot myself, I had been home from Somalia for 9 years, and I hadn't dealt with any of it. I thought I was too tough a cop, too tough a soldier to have any problems, right? This thing going to happen to me. Now, I had been a cutter since age 13, and it wasn't until college that I was diagnosed as borderline personality disorder. Now, that is as accurate and real as the PTSD, trust me when I say that. And so that day when I decided, this is it, I'm going to kill myself, I despise, I hate, and I know that's a strong word, but I really, really hate when people who don't know anything about suicide, not having felt the feelings, not having known anybody who has attempted, who has succeeded, who has felt that way. I mean, the extent of their knowledge is watching, Oprah or, some TV show. They have no knowledge about this, yet they want to tell me what you did was selfish. They want to tell me that it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But let me tell you how long I've had PTSD. That's not temporary, first of all. Now, I think there might be one good reason to kill yourself, even though I've attempted 3 times. Apparently, I'm not very good at it. I kind of suck at this. I might as well try to start living, right, Jason? Right. My 3 biggest failures have become my 3 biggest successes, right?
Yep.
So, clearly I'm not good at killing myself. I mean, I thought the gun was a sure thing, right? I mean, come on, right? The second time was carbon monoxide. The third time I swallowed 90 sleeping pills and woke up 3.5 days later in the hospital. So I think the only good reason to kill yourself is, a terminal illness. Mm-hmm. You don't want to suffer anymore. But for those of us who have attempted, we don't want to suffer anymore up here, right? Because we're emotionally exhausted to the point of almost emotional paralysis.
And for those of you listening, she pointed to her head and to her heart.
Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly painful, and I would much rather feel physical pain than emotional pain, which is probably why I started cutting at age 13. And I cut my face. The same place I shot myself was in the face. Um, so it's complex, and there's a lot of dynamics there and a lot of variables there. But essentially, there weren't any red flags for me. And so in my writing, because I've been writing since I was a wee pup, the next piece I'm going to read is I Am Suicide, similar to I Am PTSD, because all of these afflictions, alcoholism, drug use, suicidal depression, all of these things have kind of similar things to them. So here's I Am Suicide. The whisper of death. Why? Is the first question people ask about me. I am difficult to fathom, shocking, unbelievable. I assure you I'm very real. My targets are the vulnerable. My body count is high. My methods are numerous. With the help of my best friend, depression, I lure you in. I taunt you for days, weeks, months, sometimes years before my final move. I leave you alone for short periods of time, making you believe that I'm gone, that you are strong. When you least expect it, I strike again, pulling you down, dragging you behind me, leading you to my lair. I inflict relentless emotional torture until you beg me to take you. I'll bloody your hands, just as I did your heart, mind, and soul. I have become your only answer. Because of who I am, you will be ashamed to tell anyone about me. Step by agonizing step, I will lead you to the edge, cheering you on as you teeter, your trembling hands clenching the gun, the razor blade, the rope, the pills. With a final whisper, you plummet to the unknown. I am coming for you, too. I am suicide. So, again, the emotion and the power and the description behind that little bitch suicide, because, I mean, suicide's a true coward, right?
Yes.
Comes at us when we're most vulnerable, right? He doesn't have the balls to, come with us face to face and challenge us, because you know what? He can't win, because we're too strong. These misfits, these people of yours, these broken people of the world, we're too strong because we're too stupid and stubborn to give up. Right? When we're relentless, we're like, oh, what is the thing in Facebook? Oh, hold my beer, right?
Yep.
You can't be successful. You can't live. Oh, hold my beer, right? I'll show them. Because we've been discounted so many times or have had so many horrible things happen to us that we're like, everybody is expecting us to give up. Watch this, just like you were saying. And so suicide really has no ammo unless we give it to him. It's an entity. I made these things into entities that can be challenged and faced and fought and ultimately defeated. Now, the way that piece ends, I'm coming for you too. Yeah, he's been chasing me since I was brought into this world. And PTSD, it ends with, as I sit back and watch your sad finale, meaning suicide.
Wow. Right? Linked together.
So, yeah, exactly. Again, not minimizing other people's problems or stories or issues. It's baffling to me that someone will kill themselves or make an attempt on their life because of a breakup, whether it's husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. It doesn't matter. That seems a lot of value placed into a person that because they don't want to talk to you anymore, you're going to kill yourself. Now, I understand losing your house, losing your job, losing your family, to some sort of death or, car crash where you lose 7 of your 15 family members, whatever. And I'm not saying that my problems are any worse that, legitimize the fact that I shot myself in the head because my problems are so much worse than somebody's boyfriend that broke up with them. It's not that. It's just, I guess I don't have that much value in relationships that I would kill myself because my boyfriend broke up with me,
Yeah. Here's what I'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
Is we're driving towards the end of the show here. And one of the things that I love when we were talking, I know the time just flies by, right? Yeah. And it's because, it's because you're fascinating. This subject is fascinating, and we'll probably do more than one show, if I had to guess.
You're going to start paying me.
There you go. I'm good with that. My pleasure, actually. But what I would like to know, give some people some tools. Like, again, we're dealing, this message is for everybody that is impacted in one way, shape, or form or the other. When you're dealing with somebody who's suicidal, has committed suicide, attempted suicide, or been successful in your life, it impacts that whole circle, right? The circle around you. And so this message is for everybody. So from your perspective, because you've attempted 3 times, in quite dramatic fashion, you've got all of these other issues that you were talking about. What are some tools that people can find if we've got a vet, if we've got somebody with PTSD, if we've got any of the things that we're talking about, if anybody is depressed, like what are some tools that because you're, again, you're very, what's the word that I'm looking for? You're very self-effacing, but you're fucking funny. Like, and I feel your heart. I feel your spirit. I feel your, like, it's dark and deep, and it was fucking heavy. I told a couple of people after we talked, I'm like, Jesus, like I have this weight on me after this conversation. And it wasn't it wasn't like a bad weight. It was just heavy because I had a real fucking interaction with somebody,
Right.
and I'm, in the empathy thing, we take people's stuff on and then we have to deal with it ourselves. But at the end of that transaction, between 2 people, I think that both people are left better off. Yeah. And so what are some tools that you would suggest for people that are in this world of suicide and depression?
Or dealing with somebody.
Yes.
The very first tool should always be talking. Reach out to somebody, but make sure that it's somebody you can trust. Okay? Because if I called you up, Jason, I said, "Oh, Dan, I feel like I'm going to eat my gun. I'm not doing so well. And I don't have trust in you to understand that I need to purge these horrible feelings." And you freak out and you call the police to my house, which has been done. The SWAT team came for me. The SWAT, dude. Okay. So if I don't have the trust in you to say, you know what, I'm feeling like crap, I'm feeling suicidal, I can't lose this, urge to hurt myself, and need to talk it out. That's the first thing. Talk it out. If there is nobody that, for whatever reason, you can't talk to, either they don't exist, you don't trust somebody to that level, obviously there's always a suicide hotline. I'm not going to tell the horror story of the suicide hotline because I don't want people to not use the suicide hotline. Okay. This was just my experience because of my history. The thing that I recommend most to everybody I speak to, whether they're suicidal, normal, PTSD, whatever, is to write. I recommend that people write what I call an emotional journal. And it's quite simple. And people are like, "Oh, I can't write." But I'm asking you to write a best-selling novel, right? This is an emotional journal. So say that you get up every day at 9 a.m., right? And you go to bed at about 10 p.m. So every 2 hours, set an alarm on your phone. Carry a little notepad and a pen with you, or type it into your notepad on your phone. When that alarm goes off, you write down the date and the time, and you write just what you're feeling. It doesn't always have to be bad either. It could be, "Man, I'm feeling really good. I had a great lunch with Joe Blow over there." If all you write is fuck, 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 write something. Now, what happens is 3 things. So if you do this over the course of about a week, you're not going to need the alarm anymore. You're going to just randomly pull out that notepad and start writing what you feel. The reason it's important to write down the times and the date is because you can go back, say, in 6 months, and you're reading over this emotional journal. And these only need to be 1 or 2 sentences or a paragraph, whatever it is you feel like you need to write. So you can go back and say every day at 1 o'clock, your emotional journal entry was negative. And you're like, "What the hell is happening before 1 o'clock every day. What's happening in my lunch hour? Oh yeah, that's when I call my spouse. So that's when I got to do this. It's like, so you can change that behavior so that your 1 o'clock entry, now you're feeling much better emotionally. All right. So it becomes a profound tool. It also displays patterns in your day about the best and worst times of your day emotionally. I'm not talking physically. I'm not talking spiritually. I'm not talking financially. I'm not talking about anything other than your emotions. Now, you don't have to show this to anybody. You can rip it up and burn it after 6 months, or if it's not effective for you, if it doesn't work for you. If you don't learn something about yourself within the first week and start seeing patterns of what's happening in your daily life emotionally, bag it, find something else. But I always encourage people to write, because if I can't talk to you, Jason, so say, Jason, you and I become besties, right? You're my best buddy, right? And you call me up, you're like, Cleo, hey, I'm going to be out of town, or I'm going to be out of the country for the next week. I hope there's somebody that, if you need somebody to call, whatever. Well, I don't want to call anybody else. I just want to talk to Jason. So what? I'm going to write to Jason, right? I'm going to write everything that I would say to Jason. I'm like, Jason, dude, you know what? If we were on the phone right now, this is what I would tell you. Okay. So when we write it, it becomes a physical thing, much like how we're talking.
Yep.
Versus texting somebody. So if you text me and say, hey, Cleo, how you doing? And I say, I'm fine. But you can't hear the inflection in my voice, right? Yeah. You think Cleo's fine. But I could be sitting in that corner right there with a gun in my mouth.
Yeah.
You don't know until 2 days later when you get a call, hey, guess what? Cleo ate her gun. Yeah. We have to get away from behind the screens of computers and phones. We have to hear each other's voice, all right? Go shoot pool, have a beer, drink a cup of coffee, whatever it is, but put eyes on somebody. Now, I rarely leave my house. I went to leave my house today to go buy some tobacco. My battery was dead in my vehicle because it's been that long since I've even started it. So I rarely leave my house. But people know me well enough that if they really want to know how I'm doing, they're going to hear my voice. They could hear it. I can't hide that. I'm an honest person anyway. But so talk to somebody, either face-to-face or by phone. If nobody's available, write it down as if you're talking to that person, or the suicide hotline. Beyond that, what I do now a lot is I sleep it off, right? Because the one most powerful, important thing that I have learned of being enveloped in this darkness for so many years, it always gets better. The whole this too shall pass. Now, I can tell you how many times, even in the last 24 hours, that I felt like eating my gun. But I knew it would pass. Now, it may be 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months before it passed. I may be enveloped in that darkness for a really long time, but guess what? I will come out of it. If I don't give in to that little bitch of a coward, suicide, right? Yep. So, I mean, there's a million tools that you can put in your toolbox and try them out. Okay, this wrench doesn't fit. I need a 9mm wrench. I need a crescent wrench. I need pliers. I need a hammer, right? Sometimes you need a hammer, right? Yeah. So whatever tools are not working in your toolbox, get rid of them, because it's going to make more room for tools that are going to be effective. So you can write, you can talk, you can sleep. Please, please, please stay away from drugs and alcohol, though, because it's a depressant. They are natural depressants, and they will intensify the depression. That voice will start speaking to you, the inner monologue. Do it, do it, do it. I wrote a piece called The Whisper of Death. It's that whisper that has become my only friend. Do it. No one's going to miss you. Nobody cares. Just do it, you know? Alcohol and drugs intensify that. So stay away from that as much as possible. Don't self-medicate to get through it, because you're actually compounding it and making it 10 times worse. Yeah. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people will deal with their issues with drugs and alcohol. If that's your coping mechanism, fine. But try your best to find a healthier way to cope with it somehow, some way. And because I know that this is going to pass for me nowadays, when I start feeling that way, I don't reach out. I don't call anybody. because the poor people in my life, dude, is like, oh shit, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You know, it's like, you know, I still feel like I can be a burden to people with my darkness. But I've moved, when I crossed that threshold of healing and started healing and I moved past that, I now know that I can depend on myself, rely on myself to get me through it somehow, some way. You know, a lot of people who are just now feeling those feelings, they're rookies, they're infants. They don't know, they're scared. Like, why am I feeling this? This is really awful. This is horrible. What do I do? You know, that's who I'm telling this to. For anybody. I mean, and sometimes I want to reach out to somebody, I want to call somebody, but I don't really want to talk to anybody. For a couple of reasons. I don't want to worry them. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to take up their time because I know that they have a family and a job, and it's just like, Cleo, you can do this. So my own motto is that I continue putting my left in front of my right, marching to the cadence of life. In the military, we march to cadence, right? So the cadence of life is what I march to, putting my left in front of my right. Come here, Troop. This is my little dog, Izzy. You're crying.
Hi, puppy. Yep, I love those strategies. There's two that work for me. I mean, because what you're talking about, how I would verbalize it, what happened in my life was that my peace was disturbed, right? I'd figured out a way to cope with my life, and that was by ignoring it. And then all of a sudden, my existence was, I can't fucking ignore it anymore. And that was my peace being disturbed. And so went through all the stuff, the drugs and the depression and the alcohol and the, self-medicating, and then doctors medicating. And then, and then ultimately driving towards the, the day that I sat on the cliff with a gun and not doing it. Like, this is the thing. I just tell people, just don't fucking do it. Like we all have different ways of communicating to different people, but I think just that thought, don't fucking do it. Just stay here. Like, stay another day, take a nap, like you just said, take a fucking nap, take a walk, go high five somebody, go find somebody that's worse off than you and love the fuck out of them. You know what I mean? And so I learned a couple of things in my own journey, because I'm not a person who can take drugs. I eventually get to a place where because call me a control freak, call me whatever it is. I don't drink heavily. I'll have a drink every now and again. I don't do drugs. And when they started putting me on these drugs, I felt like I was out of control, out of my body. And I do my best to find natural ways to deal with shit that's going on. And so one of the things that worked very, very good for me was, understanding, yes, this too will pass. That was a big one for me, because once it happens and then I go through that, I went through it. Now I'm on the other side of it. Now I know the pattern, right? I know the thought process.
Exactly.
And I know that there's a cadence, that, to your point, right? There's a cadence of things that happen. My brain starts thinking thoughts. My breathing, it changed my pattern of breathing, right? This is for panic attacks. I've never had one ever since I learned this, is that panic attacks are a cadence of thoughts that lead into breathing. And so if you interrupt the breathing pattern to, instead of short and shallow, you start breathing deeply, then it changes everything else, know? And if you have a set of words that are ready for you, then you can use those. The way that you've done it is by writing. I created a cadence for myself. And I said, and for me, for years, and this goes into neuroscience and neural net pathways and all of the ways that we think, is that you can interrupt that shit and rewire it. It's called neuroplasticity. We can recreate our entire environment, our entire world, our entire thought process with physiology, focus, language, and emotion combined with intensity and repetition, right? That's a formula that worked for me. Again, not a doctor. It worked for me. And instead of thinking what's wrong and, oh my God, I'm depressed, I would go into this state, and Tony Robbins teaches about state, and he saved my life. I was on all kinds of drugs and the antidepressants and all this kind of stuff. And when I learned state management, it was, instead of thinking all those things, you just put yourself into a place of strength. And my cadence became, I am a powerful world changer who enjoys every breath. And I would run and I would scream, because deep breathing changes your state, right? It changes your mental capacity. Deep breathing and yelling and screaming, it's not like I was an insane person. It changed everything. It changed that wiring. And now, you know, whatever it is, I mean, you know, I'm a powerful world changer, and I enjoy every fucking breath, because now I'm a comedian. Because just like you, it's either you laugh or you fucking cry, right?
Sometimes you laugh so hard that you do cry.
Amen. Amen. And I'd rather do that. So I think that, you know, I think that laughter, I think that making fun of shit, I think that changing your state, changing your breathing, taking your nap, the suicide hotline, staying away from drugs and alcohol, writing, words are power, right? We don't realize, my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Ivy, to this day is my fucking hero, saved my life by teaching me that I can create my own universe with words. I could escape the fucking shit that I was going through at home by writing stories and saying, I am this thing, just like you just did with your writing, by our language and by learning to write, and not bullshit stuff on Facebook or responses and stuff like that. Get fucking deep. Go get a dictionary and learn the depth of this beautiful thing called language that we can all participate in, that then impacts, you know, again, something you said earlier that was really powerful was that changes and impacts your behavior, because all you're doing is reacting to those words and whatnot. And I love those tools. I love you, Cleo, and I love that your spirit. I love your laughter. I love your dark. I love your fucking light. I love the path that you've walked specifically so that you could come here and have this conversation with me, and so that my people and the Misfit Nation can hear from yet another person that said, yep, I'm going to die, but that's not fucking today. Right.
Right. Exactly.
So thank you. I want you to tell everybody how to get a hold of you. You've written a book that I highly recommend. So just tell everybody how to get a hold of you and how to follow what you've been through. And there's other things that we didn't talk about today, but I think what we talked about was exactly perfect. Right. And I appreciate, I appreciate you. So tell everybody how we get a hold of you.
Well, I've written 2 books that are available. I've written other books, only 2 are available. The first one is titled Trigger Pieces, because I call my stuff pieces. They're pieces of my heart, my mind, and my soul. Most people call them poetry, but my stuff is not. Roses are red, violets are blue. You love me, I hate you. Roses are red, violets are blue. I'll lay down suppressive fire for you. So there's some intensity behind it. So they are pieces that can trigger you. There's most of so some are true stories, some are from nightmares, some are from things rolling around in my military mind. So there is some intensity. There's some lighter stuff, not much in Trigger Pieces. It's pretty dark. Most people tell me I can only handle a couple pieces. I have to put it down. Some people said I can't even finish the whole book. So there's stuff in there about child abuse, about cutting, about depression, about stuff I saw as a cop, combat. It's just a variety of things. The second book is called Zero. And many of you the reason I titled this book Zero, which actually came out just this last September, it's only been out a little while. All these pieces were written since my treatment. And the reason I titled it Zero is because many veterans, when they get out of the military, especially combat vets, feel very much like a zero. They have no worth, no value in society, not even to their loved ones. We've been used up. People who have the affliction of any mental health, depression, bipolar, PTSD, whatever it is, also feel very much like a zero, okay? They're worthless. They have zero value. Nobody cares what they have to say or think or what's happened to them. They feel like a zero. And these people, me, that oftentimes feel like a zero or have felt like a zero, these are the ones that I'm talking to. These are the ones that are killing themselves, all right? You have showed me in the last couple conversations, Jason, that I do have value. Cleo, you are not a zero. You have value to me, to the Misfit Nation, to anybody who has the unfortunate, or I mean the fortunate, I mean, no, yeah, the unfortunate, of crossing paths with you. You have value, you have worth, not just in your words and your writing, but your sense of humor, your light, your darkness, your spirit, all those things that you just rattled off. All of us feel like a zero at some point. All of us get down on ourselves, that poor self-esteem. So put a 1 in front of that zero. Add another 0 and several more zeros. Don't be a zero. Don't let suicide win or this affliction win because you feel like a zero. That's why I titled the book Zero. They can both be found on Amazon. You can search for my name, Cleo DeLoner, capital D, little e, capital L-O-N-E-R, DeLoner. Both of those books are available on Kindle and for hard copy. I have 2 Facebook pages. One is my book page. The name of the book face, the Facebook page is A Soldier's Journey and the Battle Within. That was the title of my first book that I published. I have another page on there that's titled Dear Suicide, Nobody Dies Today. And it's a place where you can go write a letter to suicide. There's no political, there's no arguing, there's nothing. It's just you writing to suicide. And that's probably going to have to be another conversation, Jason, how that came about. Now, let me ask you, how much time do we have?
We got about 5.
5 minutes? Okay. So I do want to end it when we get ready to end. When we have about 2 minutes left, let me know, because I wanted to share this this last piece, and you will be hearing it for the first time as well. But you know, basically in closing, my hash mark is Nobody Dies Today, all right? And that's in reference to the veteran suicide. And one of my signatures in the email is, we must honor the deaths of yesterday, accept the deaths of today to prevent the deaths of tomorrow. Obviously, I'm a big advocate in suicide prevention, mainly, you know, my warrior brothers and sisters. But anybody, I don't want anybody to have that feeling again. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I'm a wordsmith, but I don't even have the ability to describe that kind of intense emotional pain, that depth of pain where it hurts to breathe, it hurts to blink, it hurts to think, you know. I don't want anybody to get to that point to where they shoot themselves, OD on pills, slice their wrists, hang themselves, drive their vehicle into a wall at 100 miles an hour. Nobody dies today, you know?
Love that. Well, I'd love to hear your parting piece. And
all right.
Just read your piece, because I'll finish up with a few words after.
Now, this goes out to everybody here that's listening. I don't care if you're dealing with depression, drugs, alcohol, divorce, suicide, whatever it is. I want you to tell that thing that you're dealing with, bring it on. This title, Bring It On. I know who you are. I know what you can do. I know the power you have held over me all these years. I know about the pain that you bring with anger by its side. I have seen what you do to the weak. I have seen you destroy the innocent. I have this to say, bring it on. I'm ready for you. My weapons will not be the anger, the pain that you have used against me. They will be my friends with love by their side. My weapons will be my strength, courage, character. Yeah, you may bring me to my knees, but know that it will only be temporary. I will rise against you. Yeah, you may make me cry. Good, that's what I need. You fear the tears that will fall from my eyes. You fear the love that I have for my life. You fear me. I know that now, and I no longer fear you. You can no longer control me with anger, hatred, and pain. You will no longer torture me, and you will never defeat me. You can't destroy me. I know who you are. Bring it on.
Whew. Not much left to say after that. Bring it on. You know?
What are you going to say, Jason?
Yeah. Bring
Bring it
it
on.
on. Yeah. Bring it on. It's a powerful thing for Misfit Nation to know and understand that, you know, the things that I've seen with the Misfit Nation, with you, is the indomitable human spirit. It's that spirit that just keeps going and just keeps looking for other places to serve, to learn, to lift other people up instead of tearing them down. And you just, again, I don't have many words in closing, which is rare for me, because you've said it. You know, you've said it. Misfit Nation, bring it fucking on. You know, because there is a you that exists that the world hasn't seen. That what she just said is, it's afraid of you showing up at full power. And it tries to scare us, and it tries to put us in a closet, and it tries to bury us with our mistakes, and it tries to bury us with fucking trolls out there that try to attack us on, you know, online and in person, and with rumors and with lies and with backstabbing and with all the other things. All I can say is that summarizes the spirit of the Misfit Nation, because every one of them is out there fucking screaming at the top of their lungs, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Cleo, thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. Thank you for trusting me enough to do this, you know, and I know it took trust. And I appreciate it. It's not beyond me that you trusted me to be here to have this conversation. And I genuinely appreciate it. So thank you, Misfit Nation. Buy her books, find her page, you know, just look her up. YouTube, she's everywhere, and share this message, because there's vets out there right now that are contemplating. There's warriors, there's non-vets, there's people, there's your best friend, there's your ex-wife, there's your father, there's your mother. There's nobody that's immune to this. And we have to be the ones that step in, change state, remind them who they are and what power they have to touch even just one soul and one spirit. And, you know, this isn't as lighthearted as a lot of my stuff, but fuck it. You know what I mean? Fuck it. Bring this shit on, and let's go save lives, save your own life, stay, and love deeper than you hate. Thank you, Cleo.
Thank you, Jason. Nobody dies today.
Nobody dies today.